We've got ovens powered by the sun, by propane, by electrical power stations, and even one that charges by your car's cigarette lighter. There's a lot going on right here, and this isn't even all of the ones we're going to be reviewing in today's video. This is just the ones I could fit on the table. And this video shows not only the best, but also the worst oven options. There's one that melted a stovetop and another that burnt my countertop. So I'll also show you which ovens you definitely want to avoid. We're going to be ranking them across a diverse list of categories, including fuel consumption and electrical pull. And that's all in thanks to the sponsor of this video, DJI, who sent me this DJI 2000, which can handle every single one of these electrical ovens like a champ. So throughout this video, you're really going to be able to see the DJI Power 2000 in action as it tests the power consumption of our electrical ovens, and just being able to tell whether or not these are going to be practical for off-grid use. So if you want to learn more, be sure to check out the links in the description, and let's get baking. Not like actual bacon, like I didn't bring bacon, but like baking. We're starting with the oven I originally bought from my van build that sparked the idea for this whole video, the Wonder Oven. I saw pictures of this super aesthetic oven in so many vans and I loved the look, so I bought one for myself, but upon first use, I was shocked by the power draw and I just felt like I needed to do more testing and seek out other potential options. If you have a really big power system though, this is an incredible oven, so much diversity and so many options. From the DJI Power 2000, it's currently pulling 1,171 watts as it preheats. I went from 41% battery to 30% while baking these empanadas, so a loss of about 11% battery total. However, it only took 7 minutes to bake these, which is super fast compared to some of the other options. It has the ability to air fry, toast, bake, and roast all in this one device, which gives it a lot of diversity, from crisping vegetables to toasting bread and baking small desserts. Every food I made in this came out well, which I definitely cannot say for some of the other ovens. As far as portability and storage, I like when these are part of the interior design in camper vans. That's part of why I got it in the first place. However, it is the second largest option on the list, with an exterior dimension of 11.6 by 11.6 by 10.6 inches. But on the flip side, that also gives it one of the biggest interior capacities of about 12 liters, so it can fit about 4 slices of toast or a 4.5-pound chicken and a 9-inch pan. To mount this permanently in my van kitchen though, the back does heat up quite a bit, so it would take up more space if I permanently mount it because I need to give it that breathing room to ventilate. Also, overall portability and storage is the worst of all these options, I think. And the cost was $185, but if this is something you'll use often, then obviously it's worth the investment. The only additional pieces I needed to buy for this oven was the Wonder Oven's Baker Kit, which is 3 8-inch pans, 1 circle, 1 square, and 1 muffin pan, but it was an insane $80. I'd really recommend, if you go this route, not buying the pans directly from them. Within one wash, the coloring was already coming off, which is really disappointing because they were way overpriced. As far as versatility though and what you can make in this, it's pretty much endless. Also, if you build this directly into your camper van kitchen, there can be 0 setup time. So when you want to make food, you can start cooking right away, which for me as a lazy baker, that's really important. And a big reason I originally wanted to go for this oven over a propane oven was that I don't need to ventilate through my van when using it. And it also means I don't need to make a propane locker, which takes up a lot of space and a lot of time to make. So while I love this oven for a lot of reasons, I just still can't enthusiastically choose it yet. Next is the Omnia Oven, which is used over a regular stovetop sitting directly on a gas or electric burner. It comes in this storage bag, but they do sell more sturdy ones for it as well, and it's typically sold in 3 pieces: the base, the pan, and the lid. These are actually surprisingly expensive, and every accessory is equally expensive. This added up so quick, and when I bought mine, I didn't realize I would need so many accessories, but luckily I bought mine used off Facebook Marketplace. But on Amazon, it is $60 for just the basic 3 pieces, $17 for a baking grid so you can sit things like croissants on it so they won't burn. The silicone mold is $26, the muffin ring is $30, and the smaller molds are $60.
Omnia, I choose you.
and they don't sell any smaller sets of those, which I really wanted them, as it comes in handy if you want to make something that's not the size of the full ring, or if you want to make two things at once and not have them mix. Plus, on top of that, I also needed to buy a heat diffuser to make sure nothing would burn, which I saw highly recommended on the reviews, but I also actually tested if you need it or not by cooking two foods with breaded bottoms, and without the diffuser, it definitely did not cook evenly without it, and the bottom cooked much faster than the top, and it came out a little burned. But when I did use the diffuser, it cooked really well. So the diffuser, I would say, is a must, and it's only $9 on Amazon, so that's not too bad. This can run off butane or propane, so as far as consumption goes, it's a winner to me, because I'll already have this stove with me in the van, and I prefer to use propane over a battery bank whenever I can. As far as portability and storage, this is pretty chunky at 9.8 inches diameter and 5.5 inches tall with a baking pan volume of 2 liters. But I will say, it's nice that all of the accessories can fit inside of it and not take up additional space. Durability wise, I think this thing will last a while, and there's no fancy components, so it'd be hard to mess this up. The stove though that I'm cooking on, or at least the one from the beginning of this video I was using, I dropped it one time and it broke, so I had to refilm this whole section because I had no stove when I was camping, so that sucks. As far as versatility, it seems pretty diverse as long as you don't mind that everything you bake will be in the shape of a donut. As far as cleanup, it became much easier and faster once I got the silicone ring. Also, the stove burnt my brand new kitchen countertop in my van, and I am devastated. No amount of sanding would get this to go away. But I think that's definitely more of a stove issue than the Omnia Oven's fault. But to be optimistic, I'm just glad it didn't catch my whole van on fire. Next is the Dash Mini Toaster Oven, which yes, is super tiny. It can fit like one piece of bread or one side of a bagel or one mini pizza. It's only 7.2 by 6.3 by 7.7 inches and can literally fit in the palm of my hand. It's currently $29 on Amazon, and I didn't need to buy any other accessories besides a small piece of aluminum foil. This does need to be preheated, but the thing about it is there's no temperature setting, only a timer. However, once I learned the aluminum foil trick, everything that I made in here has worked out great, and that hasn't mattered. Essentially, when I put something in here that takes a while to cook, like a pizza or a chicken pot pie, the top would burn while the middle was still cold. So I just take a small piece of aluminum foil and stick it over the top, and it cooks perfectly every time. When we brought this camping a few weeks ago, my mom wanted to use the Wonder Oven instead though, because when there's a bunch of us, she thought it would be silly to have to bake one cookie at a time. So I think this is better for a solo traveler maybe, or someone who doesn't mind taking turns, but also consider that when doing that, the battery percent it's pulling is pulling for each person, which can add up pretty quick. The empanadas took 6% battery, the pot pie took 5%, the cornbread took 5%, and when making the pizza in my van, I realized it only took 2% of my vehicle's big 415 amp hour system, so I thought that was pretty great in my opinion. As far as versatility when cooking, I think it's diverse as long as you're only making small foods or making small quantities. For example, you could make a can of soup in the Omnia Oven, but I feel like you could only make like 2 spoonfuls of soup in this one. Durability wise, I'm not sure on this one. I think if I dropped this a few times, it might break, and I don't imagine it will last over 5 years. I don't know, but we'll see, because I think one of the best attributes of this one is the ease of use. I don't have to permanently mount it, and it takes a few moments to move from a drawer to the counter, plug it in, and it's ready to go. And another reason I like this one is because I don't need to open my doors to use it since it runs on electricity and not propane. The next oven on my list is the Coleman box oven, which could have totally burnt my van down and completely destroyed a stove. I am still to this day scared to use this one, but let me not get ahead of myself. So this oven is meant to sit on a double burner stovetop, and there are a few pieces that I'd recommend to get with this. First is a second thermometer to place inside when baking, because the outside one isn't known to be completely accurate to the interior temperature. I read often in the reviews that it doesn't get hot enough or it burns the food. And there was 2 ways to stop these that everyone suggested, either a pizza stone or one of these insulated covers. I figured it wouldn't hurt to get both, but I might actually regret that, and it might have been what was overkill that ended up melting the stove. But as far as portability and storage, this folds down so impressively small for something that opens up to be so large. I love that I can bake a full 9-inch cake bake in here, but also not have it take up a crazy amount of space. And that really allows so much versatility in what you can cook in here as well. Once it's open, it's about 13.5 by 13 inches, and the tray inside is 10 square inches and can be adjusted to 3 different heights. This does weigh 7 pounds, and I found it semi-heavy, but I'm not too upset about that. The stove alone costs $70, and it seems really durable. This could definitely take some hits or be dropped, no problem, I think. Setup time is definitely one of the biggest pains of this one because you need to set up a stove and the oven, and then putting it back away takes forever too. And maybe that's silly to some people, but again, I'm not a motivated baker. If it takes a lot of effort just to set it up, I am rarely in the mood for that, and I just won't use it. Also, this one would need me to bake with my van door open for ventilation, which I have mentioned this a few times before. It's really important to me. In the winter, you don't want to be opening your van doors and letting all the heat out, and if you stealth camp, you don't want to be opening your van doors to let everyone see in. It's also just not safe. And yeah, this oven just decimated, completely obliterated this stovetop. It literally melted it down, and I don't really know why. I mean, you can see the interior temperature wasn't too crazy. I did cook all 3 things in this in a row, so maybe that's what it is, or maybe it was the combo of the insulated cover and the pizza stone. But now I'm scared to use it because my van could have burnt down with it. This probably would have been my overall winning choice, but now I'm just too scared of it. Anyway, the next option is ovens that go over a fire pit. So my dad and I are setting up the Turbro Firepit R29 outdoor fire pit. It's called the R29 because it has a 29-inch capacity, and it also reduces smoke. They call it a less smoke fire pit, which is nice because I hate how whenever I'm at a campfire, I somehow always manage to sit right in the worst spot possible. So we're both pretty excited to test this out, even though it's actually my mom's fire pit. She's gonna build a full fire pit ring in the backyard around it, and she also has the R19 travel fire pit, also by Turbro, in her RV, which is a full smokeless edition too. But that's it, now it's fully set up in just a few minutes and ready to go. We put just 3 logs in here, and once the fire starter was set, the flames got so high, we were really happy with it. And I think a great cooking accessory for this fire pit that I don't have in this video would be one of those grates that can go over the fire. That way you can just cook directly over it. But the first option that I do have in this video is a Dutch oven. This one was $40 on clearance at Ross. But the reason we aren't cooking with it today is that I didn't realize this is the classic type of Dutch oven that can only be used indoors, and I needed to have gotten a specific camping outdoor Dutch oven. You can make such a wide diversity of things in a Dutch oven, from baked goods, roasts, stews, casseroles like eggs, sausage, and potatoes, and so much more. And I also just think it's more fun to cook over a campfire. However, for someone like me who stealth camps a lot, it's probably not as practical for everyday use. So the next option that I thought was super unique and something I had never seen anyone talk about before was this outdoor camping crock pot. It's a slow cooker that's not run by electricity but by heating up this stone. I have the Rock Pot Mini, but they do make a bigger one as well. And to be transparent, this company did send this to me, but they aren't paying me money to show this. I saw this in my emails and I thought I might finally have a way to make pulled pork, my favorite food. So I was pretty excited because sometimes in van life and camping, you have to do trade-offs of some of your favorite things. But it's cool that after all these years, I can finally make pulled pork again. And something I do to make cleanup on this a lot faster and easier is putting slow cooker liners in it. However, my boyfriend keeps telling me it's not worth the microplastics, so this is totally optional and up to you. You don't have to do it, but I loved how easy it makes cleanup. It became the easiest of any of these ovens to clean, even though the food I was making was some of the messiest. So how this works is that the first step is taking the stone and placing it over a flame. You can use a regular cooking stovetop, which I'll show later, or a fire. It also comes with an expandable hook so you can pick up the stone and put it back down. And I will say as well, this is one of the few options on this list so far that you don't need to buy anything else for this to fully work. So I just placed it directly in the fire, and then I had to wait about 30 minutes for it to heat up to 700 degrees before I could place it in the rock pot. Something important to know about this is that it is a slow cooker. So this is definitely for someone who enjoys the cooking experience, or maybe someone who has time to prep dinner in the morning and then just wants to have it ready for them when they get back from a hike or from work or whatever the day takes. So let's dive into the actual details of this cooker. Fuel consumption wise, 30 minutes to preheat the tablet is a pretty long time to cook, and it's going to use probably the most propane out of any of the propane options on this list. But personally, I would rather do that than use electricity any day, just because I don't have a huge electrical system. And also because it requires a stove or fire, that means being outside or requiring ventilation, which means it's not as practical for stealth camping or winter van life in my experience. As far as portability and storage, I like the handle. I think it makes it easy to carry because I do find I was moving it around a lot when cooking in it. And storage-wise, this is going to take up a chunk of space, but you could also store things inside it when not using it, so that could help. And I also think if you use it a lot, then it's worth the space it takes up, but if you don't, then maybe not. Price-wise, I think this is actually one of the most expensive things on the list at $199, but again, unlike the other options, it doesn't need any additional pieces to not burn food or to be able to be used. So yeah, Wonder Oven was cheaper, but then I had to buy pans, and for Coleman I had to buy like 3 accessories just so the food wouldn't burn. So I think that's worth something, but also cooking versatility is different than those as well. This can cook things that those can't, but they can also bake things that this can't. The 2 things I made are from the Rockpot cookbook, and the first was cherry dump cake, and my family loved it, especially with ice cream on top. And the second thing I made was country-style barbecue ribs. They also had recipes for Texas-styled smoked brisket and Sunday roasts, and that's what I want to try next, or even an apple crisp in here would be good too. Durability-wise, this thing is pretty tough, and cooking volume and capacity-wise, even though this is pretty small, I can fit almost an entire 2.5 pounds of ribs in here, no problem. So even though this is the Rockpot Mini, I think it's still big enough to fit a small family's dinner. In terms of practicality, I do think I'll be using this mainly on a stovetop, just because I do tend to have fires at night and most of these foods take hours to cook. The cherry dump cake took 30 minutes of preheating and 2 to 3 hours in the Rockpot, and then the ribs took 30 minutes of preheating plus 8 hours of cooking. So unless you're the kind of person who has fires midday, this is most likely only going to be really used over a stovetop. Also, they included a temperature gauge in the box so you can place it on the stove and know once it gets to the red area, then it's ready to be pulled out and placed in the Rockpot. Also, on a side note, if you're watching this and you've watched my videos before, you may notice my van finally has a kitchen and my closet finally has a door. I mean, it's actually just the carcass of a kitchen and the first layer of my closet door. It feels great to have some more progress done on the van build, and I'm hoping to get the whole thing done by winter, but I don't know, we'll see if it happens. Anyway, the ribs were incredible and they just fell right apart, which is my favorite kind of meats, so I was very happy and I can't wait to use this more. Plus, because I was stealth camping in New York at this point, I was very happy with how easy the cleanup was.
Fishy, wake up.
Next, I want to test out a typical RV and camping propane oven, and the only one I have is in my mom's RV. And with this, I want to show you one of the coolest features of the DJI Power 2000. We've plugged her RV into power stations before, but this is the first one that I don't need a power adapter for. The RV can be plugged directly into the Power 2000 and power the entire rig. There's an outlet specific for RVs, and then with a click of a button, I'm powering the entire RV, which just makes this power station perfect for any RVer. So to start testing her propane oven, I had to turn on the propane, which if I was to replicate this option in my camper van, I would need to build a dedicated propane locker, which takes up a good amount of space in the van and also means drilling a hole through the floor for the propane to vent through, which is honestly a big reason I don't want to do this option in my van. However, I do like that it's a 2-in-1 with the countertop triple stovetop burners. I think that's pretty nice, and I like how the stove would always be set up and ready to go. Though also, imagine if anything was to break, how much of a pain it would be to replace this oven. Also, this is huge. I'm sure they make maybe a little smaller ones, but this would just take up so much cabinet space in my kitchen. My mom's RV is huge, so it's not as big of a deal, but in my van, this would be like over half my kitchen. Though again, maybe they make smaller ones, I don't know. And overall, this did cook the cake perfectly, and it didn't burn the bottom at all, and it was just very easy to set up and use. But just based on the amount of space it takes up on the propane tank alone, I think that makes it out of the running for me personally. So now let's move on to what I think is the worst oven option of all of these options, because even after baking for days, after 2 weeks, there was not a single day where the weather was good enough for this to work. This is a solar oven. It was only $30 on Amazon, and in my opinion, a total waste of money, unless it's being used for like doomsday prepping. But I will say I did see plenty of videos of other campers liking them. I just think maybe they're for the kind of person who wants a challenge and who lives in a place where it's always hot. They say it can reach up to 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. And they advertise it can cook fish, chicken, pasta, cake, soup, and more, but I personally never got the chance to test it. It said it needs to be above 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius and a bright sunny day with direct sunlight, and then still it can take hours to cook. So if I want to use solar power, here's what I plan to do instead. I think it's just better to place my DJI Power 2000 out and attach some solar panels, because even if it's cloudy or a cold day, they'll still pull at least some power, and then I can just use that power on any of my electric devices you've seen throughout this video. The DJI Power 2000 can be recharged with up to 1800 watts of solar power, and it has a capacity of 2048 watt hours and 3000 watt maximum continuous output. I was pulling about 2000 watts with the Wonder Oven at times, and I would still have been able to plug in numerous other devices at once. It can handle 99% of household appliances, and it has a lifespan of 4,000 life cycles, so it can be used every day for about 10 years and still maintain 80% capacity. And that's because of the LFP battery chemistry, which not only gives it a longer lifespan, but also makes it safer to operate. It's able to charge in 90 minutes from grid power and also can be charged by your vehicle's alternator. Using a decibel meter out here wouldn't have been too helpful, but for reference, in charging mode, it's below 29 decibels, which is quieter than most household fridges. But personally, I've been using this power station for weeks now, and the 65% battery that I started this video with was all from solar power, because while I've been out camping, there's nowhere to plug in. Plus, I brought one of the expansion batteries this weekend to be ready for anything, and the expansion adds an additional 1048 watt hours, but you can add a total of 10 expansion batteries for a total of 22,528 watt hours. Plus, these are super crush and impact resistant, you can tell because I've been like dropping the expansion battery on top for most of this video. Next is probably my second least favorite option, which is this electric lunchbox. I just felt like everything that I owned did this task better, but one perk would have been that it has a 12-volt DC car charging port, which means it can plug in your vehicle while you're driving and not pull any of your house battery. It's so tiny. And the fork. It looks more like a dingle hopper than a fork.
Oh.
A dingle hopper? Or if you're using a power station, it can pull less power because the inverter does not need to be on. But what really had me putting this back in the box was the lack of diversity of what you can do with this. It really only warms up food, and the videos I saw, it took like 15 minutes just to warm up chicken nuggets, which is ridiculous. Next is a microwave oven, which personally my microwave is just a microwave, but they do make microwave ovens. But this was important to include here for me because I use my microwave all of the time because of the convenience factor. It takes no setup, almost no time to cook things, and before to make hot chocolate, I would have had to get out my stove and it was just never worth it. And now I drink hot chocolate almost every night in the fall. When I bought this, it was actually rated at 700 watts according to the advertisement, but pulled an average of 1,500 watts, so that's pretty interesting. I tested it for the length of one bag of popcorn for 1 minute and 30 seconds to be exact, and the DJI used a total of 4% on-screen capacity, or more precisely, it used 27 watts in 1 minute and 30 seconds. I will say I got a lot of negative comments about radiation when I installed this, so that is a factor as well. Personally, this was a must-have for me. Next is my Bella Slim toaster, and I bought this from Target for $20 on a whim one day, back when I was living in my van when it was unbuilt and I just really wanted waffles and had nothing to make them in. I love waffles and I love toasted Pop-Tarts, but honestly, that is about as far as the diversity goes for this, besides like toast and bagels. I can admit this is for people who eat those 4 foods a lot, because even though it's slim as the name suggests, it still takes up a good amount of space in my van for a device that just isn't able to make very many foods. It pulled on average 750 watts and took about 3% of the battery to make 2 waffles. Something I want to say real quick is that you need to know your battery system to know if these numbers are big or small for you. Also, when I made Pop-Tarts in my van with the DJI Power 1000 while camping at Pocono Raceway, It used 61.44 watts for one toaster cycle on medium, which was 6% of the DJI Power 1000. Alright, we're almost to the end, I swear. This is the Dash egg bite maker, which there were so many options I could have gotten from Dash that are great for van life. This one was $29 on Amazon, but they also make a wider family size one for $37. The big one that I wish I had that I don't is the pie maker. It would just be so good for making any kind of pie, and I'm a big fan of chicken pot pie or like even a breakfast sandwich or cornbread with hot dogs in it or like a meat pie. The options are so great for that one. But this one is an egg bite maker, but personally I use it for so much more than eggs, like pierogies or cookies and just other things. It's just a much faster and simpler skillet is how I think of it. I made these eggs in about 8 minutes, pulled about 400 watts, and used 2% battery of the DJI Power 2000. But there was one major issue with this. I think it tastes like the plastic of this, even though I've used this like 3 times.
Man.
I don't think it tastes very good.
Does it taste like microplastic? Pretty. Tastes a little microplasticky.
And I've used that before. I want to say like
plastic,
feels rubbery.
and it cooks it in that.
Yeah, feels rubbery though.
That's dangerous. Why wouldn't you just cook it in the metal thing?
Because they make this for it.
Yeah, but that's dangerous.
They sold it like that. I ended up throwing that egg away and tried it again without the rubber insert, and that worked much, much better. I've had this little device for over a year now, and while I like some of the big ovens, this was just perfect for me when living in my van before it was converted. Back when I was living fully on a power station and using my fridge as a countertop, it was just so convenient and easy to use. It's small but didn't take up a lot of space, and the pull on my power system isn't too bad, but also I didn't feel safe using propane or any kind of flame when my van wasn't really set up in a safe way. I also didn't need to buy any additional pieces, and because it's a flat tray, it's very easy to clean. However, a downside is, because of how small it is, you can't really cook much in it. The next device is also by Dash, and this one I bought because it had interchangeable plates, and I thought it could replace the egg bite maker and just have a more diverse machine. They make waffle iron plates and grill plates, and there's also a flat plate, but the difference between the flat plates on this one and the egg bite maker is that this one, when you close it, does not have very much space to put anything in the flat plates, so it all just overflows or sticks out, and so in that way I prefer the egg bite maker. But also the waffle maker has some benefits of its own, like foods I can make that I couldn't in the egg bite maker. For example, we tried cornbread waffles. Also, I hate cleaning the waffle iron tray, especially in the van when I'm trying to conserve water, so this one I'm definitely not bringing in the van long term. Honestly, I'm still not sure which one I'll be bringing in the van full time, but it is likely that I'll be bringing more than one. I think the Coleman box oven would have been preferable over the Wonder Oven, except for the fact that it melted through a freaking stovetop, so now I'm kind of scared to trust it in my van. Also, I am still leaning towards having an electrical oven because I don't want to have to open the doors in winter or in an unsafe stealth camping situation. I'm not sure. I think even if I keep the Wonder Oven, I would still include and also pack the Omnia Oven so I can have some diversity. I don't know. We had so many options in this video, but I hope you found it helpful and helped you figure out what you want to do in your camping, off-grid, or emergency preparedness situation. But that's it for now, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.